The beginning isn't the whole story. It's surviving to thriving. Support for this podcast comes from Charles Schwab. Since 1973, Charles Schwab has been committed to helping individual investors. Let's work toward your tomorrow together. You can learn more at schwab.com. Hey, welcome to the Military Money Show, where I help the military community make, save, and invest money wisely. I'm your host, Lacey Langford, the military money expert. The way your story begins doesn't mean that's your whole story. Personal finance is a journey. We all start in different places. The actions you take along the way are you writing your story. My guest, Maricela Soberanes, her story started as financial survival in Mexico. She is one of 9 siblings raised by a single mom in Mexico City. Her mother and older siblings struggled to provide the essentials in life. To improve her situation, Maricela moved to a different city without her family so she could attend high school, which is not free in Mexico. From there, she continued to change her story by coming to the United States, unable to speak English, with only $100 to her name. She went on to learn English, become a nurse anesthetist, and serve in the United States Navy while working towards financial independence through saving and investing in real estate. We talk more about Maricela's story in this episode and how she went from financial survival to independence while in the military. Here is my chat with Maricela. Hi, Maricela. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. Listen to your show, and it's totally addicting. So thanks for having me here. It's an honor for sure.
Well, I'm excited to talk about your story because you really have, taken a situation and made it awesome. So I thought we could start off with, can you tell everybody a little bit about what it was like for you growing up? Where did it all start?
Yeah, do we have time for all that? Well, I was born and raised in Mexico, a large family of 9, and I fell somehow in the middle. So there were siblings that were younger, and some of them, they're older than myself. So definitely it was a challenge, just basic needs, but family full of love, and that kind of got us through that phase of our lives. I got to the States when I was 23 years old. First generation here, definitely didn't know anyone at that point, and didn't really speak the language either. And I was just told once that I couldn't speak the language, couldn't learn English, and that I couldn't go to college. So I got to it.
So would you say growing up that things were financially tight? Like that, maybe you were more in a survival mode than it was having abundance?
Most definitely, as far as money, yes, it was very challenging for my mom and for my older siblings to provide. But we always had a meal on the table. And like I said, there was always that, working as a team. Everybody had a task to do, whether it was being creative, selling all kinds of products, or helping in the house so that the older siblings could free up some time so that they can go hustle. And it was definitely a team effort.
I love that you said that, a team effort. I feel like that's how it was when I was growing up, that we were a team and that everybody had an important part. And if you didn't pull your weight, then, you were hurting the team. And I feel like the military is a lot like that. Like you are a team member. And if you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're letting other people down. And there's definitely that support and sibling atmosphere in the military and in a family. But I think that's so important that you are working as a team to kind of improve life or make better or do the mission or whatever it is. So I think that's a good foundation. When you came to the United States, you didn't speak English. At that point, did you have a high school education? What were the steps that you had to take to then go to college?
So actually, I did graduate from college in Mexico. I had a business degree, but it was pretty much obsolete when I arrived to the States because you can't really do business or practice when you don't speak the language. So that was my goal, number one, to learn English. And that actually got me into a whole different direction of my education. I actually became a nurse, became an advanced practice nurse as an anesthesia provider. And in 2011, I completed my doctorate degree from the start in 2003.
Yes. I have to give full disclosure. My sister is a CRNA. She's a nurse anesthetist. And that's a lot That's a lot. Like to go from not knowing English to providing anesthesia. I tell, my sister, I'm like, you knock people out. Like that's a lot of responsibility. Also a lot of things to remember, different mixing of medicines and bodies and weight and all of these things, somebody's general health. That's a lot of coordination that goes into that. So that is amazing that you went from, coming to the United States in your 20s. It wasn't like you came when you were, 10.
Yeah.
You came in your 20s and learned English. And then did you become an anesthesia provider before you joined the military or after?
It was after. It was after I completed my degrees that I felt like it was time to be less selfish, because at one point, I was just paddling on survival mode again and focus heavily on my education. And I realize that I was selfish in a good way, but I was just like doing my thing. And so when I finished and I kind of woke up one day, I was like, all right, this is a beautiful country. I do obey by the values that, and the opportunities that this country has provided me. And in other ways, I wanted to explore the military as a way to practice my skills. And I wanted to just be exposed to different scenarios of not just going to the hospital and to the comfortable OR operating room and with all those supports that we have. I wanted just to kind of step out of my comfort zone. And that was one way of doing it. And yet there was a lot out of comfort zone for sure. Coming to the military with, just with your habits already formed, which I didn't feel like it was too different, because I've always been just pretty, I would say, strict with my time, my money, and my personal connections. So I loved it. I love being there and learning and networking with other people of all ranks and just building a different type of family, because I do believe that military does give you that commodity of just like the second that you put the uniform on, you already feel like you share blood with with others wearing the uniform.
Yes, I totally agree. I always say joining the military or making that decision to join the military was the best one I ever made in my life. Do you feel like there are some experiences, situations, or decisions that you made that changed your trajectory, whether that was coming to the United States, learning English, joining the military? Are there some key things that you feel like have helped you with success?
Yes, most definitely. I think that you have to be purposeful on making decisions, and decisions that are made every day. We make millions of decisions as, just from getting up. Do I get up now or do I sleep a little longer? That's like the first decision that we make. So yes, I believe that, well, simply when I was finishing middle school, and pretty much the cycle is, if you don't have any money, you probably were not going to be able to go to high school, because in Mexico, you have to pay for high school. And my mom could not afford to put me to high school. So I decided I was going to go to high school. And that was just my decision. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. Ended up having to move to a different state where my aunt was able to help me to get to the school with my grades. And that was it. That like I just didn't see myself not going to school or not going to high school. In the same way, when I'm an adult, if I make a decision that I feel like I just don't see any option. Like not an option to fail or to step away from that goal. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. I think that's so interesting that in the United States, a lot of people just, it's assumed you're going to high school, but in Mexico City, that wasn't an option. You actually had to pay to go to high school. Is that right? And if you didn't have the money, you had to get some type of scholarship or get somebody else to pay for it.
Correct. Yeah, it's totally different way of education system and health system. I mean, it's a different country altogether. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, I think that's amazing that you made those decisions. And it's not necessarily even in the decision. It's the decision to take some type of action for change, to say, okay, hey, I don't want it to stay this way. I want it to be different. And what action can I take to make that difference? So I think that's pretty cool that you made that decision. And then going back to that team, that your whole family, your aunt's helping out to make sure that you get to go to high school. So I think that's super cool. So you come to the United States, you join the military. When did you start working towards financial independence? Because you really went from the survival mode of growing up in a large family in Mexico City and then get into real estate investing. What made you make that decision?
Well, pretty much, like I mentioned, I'm always being organized with my money. I still have the logs where I kept money as I started earning tips, waiting tables and cleaning offices. I had my income and then I had my expenses. I like how much I pay for it, the bus or the taxi or meals. So I always control my money in that way. So even when I was cleaning places, I got $10,000 in the bank, which my friends, that was something that they probably never seen together. And so I've always been very careful with my money. And I felt like coming to the States, not really understanding the system and how to get ahead. Pretty much like we don't have in Mexico, we don't have a credit bureaus that are going to report and track your credit report. When I purchased my first duplex, my problem was that I didn't have any credit. I didn't have bad credit. I just didn't have credit recording at all. So learning that, I felt like, well, what else am I missing? So I did a lot of reading, a lot of self-educating myself and ways the financial system works in the States. How do you build credit? How do you increase your earning capacity as far as not just going to work, clocking in and clocking out, but what else can a person do to produce passive income? So when I purchased my first duplex, I purchased it with that mindset. Like if I was going to not be able to make that full payment for a mortgage, that part of it is going to be paid by somebody else. And at that time, when I graduated from nursing school, I figured I'll do the grown-up thing, right? Buy a house. So that's when I purchased my first duplex. Then a year and a half later, I went back to grad school to do the CRNA anesthesia school. So I moved very quickly because the requirement to go to a CRNA school is you have to have at least 1 year of experience in the intensive care unit. So I completed that like at fast pace. I applied for anesthesia programs right away. So that put me at having to leave the house because I was going to do the school, grad school, in a different state. Thankfully, I had picked that asset that I was able to rent out, and pretty much it was paying itself. All the expenses were covered by the renters, by the tenants. And I wasn't really cash flowing, but I was able to put money away from that in case of disastrous need for my maintenance or repairs. But that's kind of how I started doing that, the investing. I just got lucky. I got that really good realtor that advised me on how to build my credit. I took 2 mortgages because the banks don't trust you. You have all the money in cash. I used some strategies to pretty much get on the door. And then being in grad school, then I spent the next 8 years or so, from the time that I purchased the duplex to the time that I actually purchased my second house. I actually was deployed at one point, and when I was deployed, I spent a lot of time educating again myself on real estate and how to build your portfolio, what strategies to use. So that's kind of what it got me started. Then I started acquiring fourplexes, and then just later, 2018, my husband joined me. He's also in the Navy, and that's how we met. And he was an incidental landlord, like many military members, just go around moving and buying houses and places. So he had that kind of experience. So we decided to join our portfolios and our lives. And we pretty much escalated there from the 2018 to 2020. We acquired up to 35 doors together, and we managed that. So back to your question, how did I get started? I guess by accident, maybe by just trying to produce another source of income, but really not knowing the business.
So you did say, though, that the first home you bought was a duplex. It wasn't a single family home. So you actually were, had a renter next door that was helping initially pay that mortgage until you went to grad school. So that's not something that a lot of people would think to do. What made you do the duplex? Just curious.
Yeah. So when I was looking for houses, when you give your budget pretty much to a realtor, I felt like they were trying to sell me a bigger house, just something bigger. That's not something I wanted. It was just me and my dog. So I felt like I don't need a lot of space, especially when I was growing up. We were like 8 people in one room, so like, I don't need that. And I was, again, the mindset of, I want something that I can, make some money or some income out of it. I didn't really know about the structure of a duplex. So I was talking to one of the realtors, and I kind of explained what I wanted to do with buying a house. And she mentioned that there were such thing as multi-living. So that's how I started then looking into duplexes, because a fourplex or a triplex was definitely outside of my budget. So a duplex kind of makes financial sense. And again, it was just a way to do the grown-up thing, like, buying a house after you graduate from college, but not in an excessive way and not in a responsible way, but more like a business type of decision.
Yeah. It also sounds like you did your homework. I think that's so important. And I tell people that all the time, that especially me as a financial coach, I can't do it for you. I know how to manage my money. I'm trying to teach you how to do it. So you actually have to start kind of doing those things and taking ownership a little bit. And I think it's very powerful that you were educating yourself, not just when you were buying a home, but even when you were deployed and you're making plans for the future to improve and get better with your real estate portfolio. So I think that's really important for people to hear that message, that it's not that you have to have a formal education in anything, but you should do some basic research so understand the playing field, who's on the playing field, and ways that, you could be a better player on that field, I think is really important.
Absolutely.
When you started out, like looking back, are there any mistakes that you made in starting this that people could avoid? You started doing investments. Were you saving a certain amount? Did you have the goal of financial independence? Was there a certain amount you want saved, or was it just you wanted to build your investments?
No, I did. I had savings. And as you probably know, in the anesthesia program, many programs will not let you work. You are a full-time student. And so the timeline shows I graduated from nursing school. Like a couple months later, I purchased this property. And then a year later, I went to grad school. So I didn't really have a lot of time to save. But I saved as much as I could, because when I was doing my research on how much school for CRNA was going to cost me, and those were big numbers. And so I knew then that I was going to have to get student loans. Before then, for my other 2 degrees, I didn't have to. I just pay cash, for them. I didn't have any student loans, but I knew then that CRNA, I was going to have to finance it. So I look at the investment, how much it was going to cost me, but then I also looked at how much I was going to make out of school and how soon I can pay it back. So yeah, I saved a lot, as much as I could, because I was also going to school while I was working in the ICU to meet my requirements for anesthesia school. So I was working at 9, going to school during the days. Some classes were in person and some classes were online. So there was only so much I could work. On the weekends, definitely work, and work at nights gave me an extra bonus. Night shift, I usually paid a little better, but they're devastating for your health. So yes, I saved. I didn't really have a number. I was just saving as much as I could. But now looking back, definitely when, and we advise this to people that want to get into real estate, you have to have cash reserves for each house or each property that you own. In fact, especially this last year with all the pandemic, most lenders are asking you to have in escrow accounts a minimum of 1 year of expenses. That includes your utilities, your mortgage. And that's a lot of money. And it was common to do that requirement for commercial real estate, but now they are doing it even for homes if they're going to be rentals. And so definitely you should set a number. Like, you should understand how much is it costing you to keep that house, or if it was empty, how much you will have to come out of pocket to cover all the expenses, and then calculate whatever is comfortable for you. Some people will tell you 3 to 6 months. But like in my case, I was going to be out of work for 2.5 years. So I just saved like a maniac and pray for the best.
Yes. So savings is important. What other steps can people take to start working towards financial independence? Is it setting the goals? Is it just starting with one house? What would be your advice for people that are, starting right now?
Yeah. So the thing that I advise and practice is knowing and understanding your expenses and controlling your money. There's nothing, it doesn't matter how much money you make. You can be making 3 digits income, but if you don't know where your money is going to, you cannot get ahead simply. You're going around financing everything in life. You're paying twice or more sometimes of what you can pay for one given item, whether it's a house, a car, or a CD player, whatever people pays on finances and financing it. That is using credit cards. If you could go around putting all of your purchases and credit cards, that's going to be devastating, because you probably would know you have a really hard time getting out of the debt if you're overspending. So number one will be tracking your expenses and understanding where your money is going to, because when you take a panoramic view of your expenditures, you can then identify some areas very easily where you could maybe not eliminate it, because nobody likes to just drastically make changes, but maybe decrease it or do something different. That you can still have fun, you can still be active, and you don't have to pay for a membership at a gym. There's so many things that you can do. Running is free. I love running. I'm a marathon runner. So there's so much stuff that you can do without having to put in a credit card and add to an expenses.
I love that. I say that all the time. So we are like-minded, that it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you don't manage it, you could be, a lottery winner, but you're still going to go broke if you're not watching your money. And I think you mentioned it when we first started talking. It's so important for people is to track your money. What gets measured gets improved. And if you were tracking every little penny that you made, that I think is so important. When people are budgeting, they're often focused on what's going out instead of what's coming in. And I think that that's actually really important, is to do two types of budgeting, what's going out, but also really looking at every single penny that you make and breaking that down. And if you're trying to make more money, then there are these side hustles or part-time jobs or other ways that you can bring in money, even if it's just little jobs like cleaning up somebody's yard or something. But measuring and monitoring that money not only helps you keep control of it, but it also helps your mindset to know, hey, I'm doing good. Like, I'm bringing all of this in. It's not just all going out. Like, I'm getting, to the other side of it. So I think that's really wonderful advice. For anybody that's listening right now that's in financial survival mode, what's your advice for them when they're in that, kind of fight or flight with money?
Yeah. Well, first of all, change your mindset. So many times we hear the word financial independence and we immediately separate and build up a wall to stay in our comfort zone. That's not for me. That's for rich people. That's for, people that has connections. And we immediately set our mindset to deny ourselves with that possibility of that being us. So changing your mindset, thinking abundance, visualization of what you want to be or where you want to be, but then also taking action. You can be as broke as you might be and struggling, but there's so many things that you can do for free. In fact, I wrote a course that is available, and if any of your audience has any interest in that, I can open a voucher to make it available for free. But it's called 10 things that you can do to start your own business. And there's a lot of potential that we have, and we just have to be able to explore and then, make that a reality. So networking with other people or finding a mentor, somebody that has done what you want to do and they're willing to share, you'll be surprised. Sometimes you just approach somebody and ask for the help that you need, that people that is living in abundance are very willing to give. So find yourself a mentor, connect yourself with people that are going to be bringing you up instead of staying with you in the comfort zone.
Oh, I love that. I think that's really good. Especially the people you surround yourself with, you don't know it. You get in a bubble. And if everybody is woe is me and I don't want to improve, I want to keep the status quo in life, that's kind of the environment, the mindset that you're going to have. But if you are with people that want to improve, that's like running. You don't want to run with somebody slower. You want to run with somebody faster. So you improve your run time. So I love that advice. This last question, I don't know, might be difficult, but I want to ask it because I think you have an amazing story. You've done a lot in your lifetime, and all of it is about improving. It seems like you've just continued to build on improving your life. Looking back, what is the thing that you're most proud of? That might be a hard question, but I'm curious to know.
Yeah, one thing that I always preach as well is to celebrate your successes, even if they're small or big. There, that is a success. And the reason why I always advise this is because there is actually a neurological chemical that we release when we make our brain aware of what we did. So you make time and celebrate. It is the happy hormone that we release, and it just addicting, and your body wants more. So you release dopamine when you stop and just cheer yourself up and say, "Hey, that was really good. Do it again." And your brain will drive you to do it again. The other thing that we do when we stop and celebrate something is pausing and understanding that we didn't get here by ourselves. So whatever you achieve, you didn't achieve it by yourself, unless you were the first person in this world. What if you were tired and you just stopped for a coffee? You didn't just get the energy because you make the coffee and you boil it and you prepare it, right? You don't just stop and thank others for helping you achieve your success or achieving your goal, right? So making the time to thank some others are also is beneficial because they are gonna get the happy hormone as well. Because they recognize, and very likely if you stop and thank them, they're gonna want to help you again because they want more of that. So that's what stopping and celebrating your success will do to you. You get a signal that it's a good thing that you did, you do it again and again and again. Take the time to thank others and they want to do more for you. So that being said, I celebrate my successes very often. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a big party like the quinceañera, but something that is meaningful to you. So that being said, I have to go back and review my successes, and I'm gonna be bragging about myself because I do. Being a first generation immigrant has a lot of, I would say, it just forces you to be a better person altogether. You want to be a better person, to be a role model for others that might not make it here, might not have the opportunities. So they are pretty much putting their hopes in your hands. So that's a lot of responsibility. Also, you have to kind of prove to the society that you're here for a good cause. So breaking so many statistics as a first generation immigrant, minority woman, that to me is the huge thing that I treasure. And I always support those that are in the same position for sure. Yeah, I think that's what I'm the most proud of.
I love that. I also love too that just that one thing that you're most proud of. There's so many things that you've done at that moment, coming to the United States and learning English, joining the military, becoming, an anesthesia provider. Like those are pretty big darn things that you did when you came to the United States. So I think that's an awesome thing to be proud of. And I love your recommendation for people to celebrate their successes and have gratitude for everything, everything that's gone into that success. And I totally agree with that. Although sometimes I'm guilty of not celebrating my successes. I'll move on to the next thing. Like I got to feel like I got to keep going and pushing myself harder. But more and more, especially my business has grown, that I've tried to do that, to take a moment and be like, this is a win. Like, there was a lot of work that went into it. And I do a lot of gratitude emails. I always want to make sure that people that have helped me and a lot of times people don't even know they've helped me. They've said something or done something. There was some small action that in that moment, they were just kind of being human, but that little action really helped me or changed my day or an event or something like that. And I make sure I let those people know because one small action can change the trajectory of somebody's life. And often, we just go through the motions, and I think pointing out things to people to say, hey, like you said, it gives them that good feeling. Like they gave me that good feeling in a moment, and I want to repay that good feeling back. So I love that you said that. Well, I want to ask you a couple of quick random questions. One, I want to know what's one resource or tool that you use that makes your life or business or work easier?
Yeah, I think that definitely has to be technology. And there's so many apps that are out there for us managing our portfolio from distance because we are landlords from distance. So we must have systems in place that are going to allow us to carry on our duties as we don't have a desk. So everything is virtual. We have, unless it's like a pay off mortgage that have to be physical, everything else is accessible online. But the one app that I love is Notability. It allows you to download documents, sign, type if you need to type, highlight, and then converts them into a PDF file, and you can send them out, as a response. So back in the days when you had to print something, sign it, and then, fax it, that all is carry on with this app. So love it.
Did you say it's Notability? Is that the name?
Yes, Notability.
Yeah, I like that one. I use Hello Sign a lot, but I hadn't heard of that one. Well, we'll be sure to put links to both of those in the show notes for everybody. Now I want to know, what is your favorite book right now or your favorite book of all time?
Just finished reading Best Year Ever, and that was really good, very practical. But my favorite, I always recommend to anyone that wants to just gain control of their finances, is The Millionaire Next Door. And that is because it just kind of shows you that it's okay to live frugally if you want to accomplish something in the future, or you want to just have a better life, financial life. And, sometimes I think it's a society kind of pushes you to match their clothes, match their car, match their house. And you don't have to do that, and you'll be surprised how many people live so frugally and they are so financial free. And every story that he shares there is like, yeah, I can see that. I do that. It's just a mindset that changes.
Yes. Well, I will also put links to that in the show notes. I think that's so important. And it's so interesting when you do meet somebody that's super well off and you never even knew it, because they're just keeping it real and living life. And that's a really great book. So we'll definitely link to it. All right. Now it is time for my favorite part of the podcast, which is game time. And today we are going to be playing fact or fiction. So I'm going to read to you 4 statements, and you have to tell me if it's a fact or if it's fiction. Are you ready?
Sure.
You're like, maybe. Okay. The first one. Neither strawberries nor raspberries are actually berries. Is that fact or fiction?
Fact.
You are correct. Botanically, both are classified as aggregate fruits. Blueberries are one example of a true berry. So you got that one right. All right, next one. Fact or fiction? Walt Disney's real name was Mortimer Dinnerstein. Fact or fiction?
Fact.
It is fiction. His real name was Walt Disney, but Mickey Mouse's original name was Mortimer in his first animated short, Plain Crazy. I did not know that Mickey Mouse had a different name. So, okay. All right, next one. Winston Churchill's mother was the daughter of a poor Irish potato farmer who himself died in a famine of 1845. Is that fact or fiction?
Sure, it's true. It was on the internet, right?
No, it's fiction. Apparently, I didn't know this. Winston Churchill's mother was an American socialite born in Brooklyn. I did not know that. So, fun fact there. But it was fiction. Okay, next one. A typical pencil contains enough graphite to draw a line 35 miles long. Fact or fiction?
It is true. I've done it. Just kidding.
That was a great answer.
I'll be right back.
You are correct. You can draw a 35-mile long line with a pencil. So that is a fact. So it was tied. You got 2 right, 2 wrong. So you did, I think, pretty well for fact or fiction.
Good guessing.
Yes. That was actually really good guessing. Well, I appreciate you being on the show and playing Game Time. Can you tell everybody listening where they can learn more about you and what you're up to?
Yes. So I write a blog. It's called From Financial Survival to Financial Independence, and I'll send you the link so you can post it. We also have a Facebook group for couples in the real estate business, and you're welcome to share that as well. And Uplex Institute is the platform that we use to share financial literacy classes, courses put together. And you can find us in Udemy. So I'll also send that information to you.
Yes, wonderful. We'll be sure to link to all of the resources and tools that Maricela has shared with us. And I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thanks to Maricela for coming on the show to share her story. Thank you to Charles Schwab for providing support to the Military Money Show. To learn more about Charles Schwab and how they can help you reach your financial goals, visit schwab.com today. You can also head over to LaceyLangford.com to get all the show notes and resources we talked about. Coming up on the Military Money Show, I'll be talking to Peter Polson from Tiller about how to use spreadsheets to manage your money. I appreciate you listening, and I will talk to you next week.